just to clarify here, the tools here are not just jobs and functionalities in Pure, but also some mindset adjustments and acceptance of certain limitations. Okay, so thank you, Morten. Yes, I'm Thomas Gurney. I'm the product manager for the Pure Core module. So that's the data models underlying everything, but also primarily the data quality that underpins a lot of the value proposition that Pure has. So as I said earlier, this talk is going to be a little bit about mindset and tools, and the tools to help you improve your mindset. So this is going to be a little bit of an interactive presentation, just to keep us on our toes, especially since we're all a little bit caffeine deprived and end of the conference. So I may be walking around a bit, and I'll be asking questions to you as the audience during the presentation. So if you want to leave now, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so we had some fantastic sessions at the networking event earlier today talking about data quality. So there was also a very vigorous discussion yesterday about this, and I see some faces from both sessions here. And the question to yourself, and my question to you, is do you think about why we are actually collecting this data? Do you think about how we are collecting this data? And maybe this is a more fundamental question. And so it sometimes helps to remember, who are the people that we're helping? So you as Pure admins, who are the people? Any data. Pure. Data and Pure. Your data. Yeah. So remember, this product is primarily for researchers to input their data into Pure. And we have to remember, what is the day-to-day life of a researcher at your institution? So some of you may have the student content type there. So master's theses, publishing research, all these master's students are worried about just graduating. For the post or PhD students, they have all their coursework to do, the dissertations they need to write, they'll be writing their first grant applications. So there's a lot of challenges that they face, to get funding, to find a project, and am I going to have a job at this university if I want to stay in academia? And for the researchers themselves, how many publications does your institution make them publish in 1 year? 2? 3? Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on everybody. And so they have to worry about not only job security and reputation now as they start publishing, but all of these records that they start producing and all of this data that they start producing for the institution that Pure needs to be able to capture. It's the same with the research director or research office. All these different types of data that are used, so project data, collaboration data, grant application data, and all of these different needs that they have this data for. So decision-making support, resource allocation. And this is all assuming that this data is up to date, it's complete, it's validated, and generally high quality data. And there's a lot of risks associated with the research office. So a lot of credibility risks. There's a big impact on funding. If we don't have the right data, are we more successful or less successful in attracting funding and attracting researchers to our institution? There's also the compliance side of it. So all of these funders have compliance requirements for what data they need to collect. And just generally the researcher morale. If I make it so difficult to add content to Pure, for example, we're actually decreasing the morale or the engagement of users to Pure. And last but not least, the data management life of the Pure team. So we talked earlier in the data quality sessions, how big is your Pure team? And ranges from 1 to 17, or I think somebody had 30 people with part-times, etc. So the correlation, and we discuss this, between the size of the Pure team versus the quality of data is not necessarily direct. It's not a precise correlation. So being able to capture data, being able to check the data, being able to share that data via reporting, for example, but also all the challenges that come with that. Getting your researchers to add data in a trustworthy way, like getting them to add all the right fields and submit on time, make sure it's open access. I know you guys have a huge challenge on your hands. And if we think about the original purpose of a CRIS, so this list here of purposes that a CRIS should serve is from 1998, and was created by Eurocris and Cordis, and it's called the Code of Good Practice. 17 different points that a CRIS needs to be able to support. But your institution, be there by itself, may have a completely and entirely different context to other institutions around the world. Your researchers may exist in completely different evaluation frameworks, such as REF, ERA, DHET, and CEP, which is no longer present. But the point being that there's so many different flavors that each pure team needs to manage. Same with research outputs. Do you have access to Web of Science, or Scopus, or PubMed, or Dimensions? So all of these different data differences that you have to deal with as a pure team. And ultimately, the purpose of a CRIS should be able to identify, facilitate, promote, analyze, inform, evaluate, and exploit research. So taking all these different perspectives into play here, your users, you are our customers, but you have your own users. And putting that into a nice little diagram here, the different needs that the researcher has of the pure team versus the researcher has of the research office, and vice versa. The pure team has a unique position, and that you are essentially controlling the relationship when it comes to data between the researcher and the research office. So you have this all-powerful position. Sorry, somebody's trying to contact me on Teams. It's not my laptop, but I'm getting a request to call somebody on Teams. Let me close that quickly. And so, oh wait, now the beeper is not working. Ah, there we go. So between each, there are all these different needs, expectations, and requirements. And because you have that unique position here, we need to make sure that any of these needs, expectations, and requirements are supported by high-quality data between the researcher and the research office. So taking all of those needs together, we have to balance them. And we have to balance them against the data challenges that we talked about earlier, so data overload, consistency, user training, and just generally maintaining high-quality data, and the institutional context. So we asked earlier, how big are your pure teams? But maybe another question is, how do you subscribe Scopus? Does your institution have the budget to subscribe to these big databases? And what are the different needs of your institution? So your stakeholders, as pure admins, if you think about somebody calls you and says, I need a report to do this. Those are your stakeholders, and those are the people that you need to provide meaningful reports to. But you also need to make sure that the data supports that. So this institutional context here, we have a position where the needs and the context can clash. There's a problem with the publications, the team, the data availability, and what are the different available integrations that we have here. So this is, the next couple of slides will have very big charts on them, and the point is not to focus on the precise details, but the overall picture here. So, as I said, just ignore the details. But the main point here is you can be constrained by your context in your institution, but we can use a bottom-up approach to satisfy the needs of our stakeholders higher up. So, important questions for us. What matters most, and the most important thing to remember is everything is related. So I'm going to go through each of them here, 1, 2, 3, 4, separately, and for each of them go into some more details. So starting first, data quality needs. So what needs from my institution match with what what quality? Should it be complete? Should it be correct, connected, current, compliant? What content types are the most important to my institution, to my stakeholders, and to my needs, my roles and responsibilities as a pure admin? And what opportunities are there to actually manage these content types? We have lots and lots of different jobs. We have different functionality that can help improve data quality and so on. And diving deeper into this idea of what's important for data quality. So 3 years ago, or 2022, end of 2022, we asked in quite a big survey, 80 different people responded, how important is each of the 5 C's of data quality to your institution? So overwhelmingly, correct. The data needs to be correct. And second, after that, is compliant. The data needs to be compliant. So we can start to see a pattern of which element of data quality we need to focus on as an institution, and as a Pure admin, as a validator, somebody who uses Pure in general. And of course, we know that there are many different types of content in Pure. And so this is a sample from a customer database of the counts of each individual content type. Sorry, somebody's trying to call me again on Teams. This is not my laptop, by the way. Let me close that. So external persons, largest content type in Pure, research outputs, and then external organizations, and various. So you can kind of see just by looking at, thinking about the size of or the volume of the different content types in Pure, where your data quality issues are going to come up. Second point, so the stage of data management. So in the data quality sessions, we talked about do we post-process data? So when it comes into Pure, we manage duplicates that way, or we can be more clear with our researchers to actually prevent bad data coming in, or we can subscribe to Scopus or Web of Science to get good quality data from the start. But there are also specific functionalities like workflows. Do you enable 3 or 4-step workflows? Is the UX or the interaction on the UI on the editors, is it clear enough for your researchers, for your users to be able to understand what's required of them to add data? When it comes to content creation, is it better to import from PubMed, for example, and then update from Scopus in the future? So your speed at which you bring content in, or the need for having content in early versus having correct content. There's that balance there. For American customers, generally, the profile refinement service, for example, it's a paid service that a team will automatically, curate content for you and import it automatically for you. I don't know any European customers that use it, but it is quite a common feature used by American customers. And of course, the automated search and candidates, and which use author ID-based fetches like ORCID or Scopus author identifiers. And I talked a lot, of course, about import sources. The third one is data control. So once the data is in your Pure, how do you fix it? So there are different types of data control. So the referential. So am I able to compare it, and do I have a link of the DOI to the journal so that I can immediately compare the journal version with the version in Pure? There's the option to correct data. There's an option to block content. So, for example, the affiliation or organization lookups, you can actually lock them so that your users don't have a chance to create more bad data. There's also some of the automated checks, like the open access file embargo check and the file upload reminders if you're more interested in compliance. And all of these points here that I put here, these are actually different jobs or different functionalities in Pure that you can tap into. There's the Sherpa Romeo check for open access possibilities. So when you create in a research output record and you select the journal that it is, the little widget there will actually tell you, like, if you upload this PDF, you'll be compliant with your journal requirements for open access. And of course, there's lots of extra data that you may not even need in your Pure. So being able to batch delete unused content, that's a super handy feature that can actually reduce the number of duplicates for you. And for community customers, we have a whole host of different deduplication jobs specifically for each content type. And we're definitely thinking about making these available to every customer, because we know that there's still challenges when it comes to managing data quality and duplicates. And number 4, the trust. So this is perhaps one of the biggest interesting ones, and this is perhaps where the human nature of the problems comes in, is how much do you trust your users to take the time to check affiliations on their co-authors? Like, or do they just import from Scopus and then click, click, okay, save? How much do you trust in jobs that manage data? You know, there's a lot of work that goes into making these jobs, but you know, we want a human in the middle. We want a human in the loop to make sure that this data is being processed correctly. And of course, how much do you trust your import sources? So for all of these different, so for paths 1, 2, 3, and 4, the value that you assign to each of them is quite important as an institution to decide quite early on. And it'll differ from institution to institution. So there are a lot of questions for us, like how can we better help you? Should there be better documentation, like a better description of the jobs and what they can do for you? There's customer advice, and of course we have new and improved functionality almost all the time. And the collective learning, which I think I was very happy with to see at the data quality sessions, was what can I learn from my fellow customer? So we managed this by doing this. This tip helped us save this much time. Or this job did amazing work for us, but there's a problem in this side of it. So just look around the room, speak to your colleagues and say, what's your secret for doing this? And so the learning through experience part here, as you progress with Pure, the evaluating of, or the self-reflection, are my workflows working for me? So also thinking about your context, the institutional context, has it changed since in a year, since, from the implementation stage to year +1? Like how fast am I actually generating content in my institution? How are my stakeholders reacting to my reports? They say this collaboration map is rubbish. Like, does that mean I need to spend more time focusing on external orgs? And what are the data problems that are creeping in? And I think every new Pure admin realizes this over time. It's like, oh shit, this content is not, this shouldn't be, should not be growing this way. And eventually, of course, you have to reevaluate your priorities as your institution matures, as you mature as a Pure admin. You need to think, okay, is it about the correctness? Is it about compliance? And so the idea being that instead of forcing yourself up a difficult route up the mountain, what are the steps that I can take to make sure that everything that I do as a Pure admin that supports that relationship between the researcher and the research office is geared towards that. So now this is the interactive part of it. So I'm glad that more people joined. So first of all, any questions for me? I know that I'm sure there are lots of questions. I see. So maybe, okay, now I have some questions for you. You guys were too slow. So we did an informal survey in the data quality sessions. How big is your Pure team? More than 5, raise your hand. 2 people, 3 people, or 3 institutions have
FTE or persons?
FTE. 5. Yeah, 5. And what is the, okay. Sorry, I can't see your name tag, so I'm just going to point it to you. What's your biggest data quality challenge?
Actually, yeah, the most. I'm not sure if there is like huge challenges, but I think just to get the. Somehow, I think the getting the researchers to do the inputting the data. I think that's the.
So there's some very good suggestions to have better, the better user design, editor design, like more help tips, for example. Having the ability to modify the text resources a bit more, to say this field is required for our institution, or even hiding fields that my institution is not interested in. Okay, another question. When it comes to data quality, apart from the networking sessions, have you spoken to any other colleagues from other institutions about data quality? Yeah? That's good. That's yeah. Okay, now's your chance again. Any other questions for me? Or any questions for me?
Yeah, I was curious, so when you considered the Pure,
if you consider the Pure team, so in your triangle, there's sort of the moderator between the researcher and the research office. Yeah. I wonder how you see this, because we have a functional management team that's centrally located, but then within the faculties we have key users validating information as well, doing these kind of jobs with data quality and checks that you mentioned. Yeah. Do you consider them as well to be part of this?
Yes, I would consider any elevated users of Pure to be part of the Pure team. Maybe not functionally or organizationally, But the editors of organizations, for example, the people that you've given responsibility to say, please make sure that this data is of high
That's
quality.
correct, yeah. Then in our case, it's pretty big, and I think that helps.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to hear from you that the size of this team doesn't correspond with the data quality.
Yeah.
How can you explain? Can you elaborate on this?
That's something we were confused about as well. So yesterday at the session, we asked how big was everybody's team, including elevated roles, and then tried to map it to data quality. Does having a bigger team mean bigger data quality? But of course, you have the variables such as how many publications my institution produces, what import sources, just simple infrastructural issues that you as a pure team can't manage.
Yeah. Okay.
Bonnie.
New topic or same topic?
Any topic you want.
Okay. So I think one of the things that that we're grappling with, so we've had it for about 7 years, is how to make that shift from where your data mindset was when you started. So we're like, bring it all in, let's all have fun. And now it's like, oh my God, we have so much, and what do I do with it, and how do I clean it up? And how to shift everybody's, your users' thinking another way. So suggestions, thoughts about how you shift from where you start and how you bring data in and what your thoughts are to a more mature data quality mindset. A new mindset, Thomas. How do I get one?
There we go. So about a month and a half ago, the Dutch user group organized a validator workshop. So this is not for pure admins. This is specifically for pure validators from different institutions. And so Robin is another pure user here. It was very interesting, about 70 people who are not pure admins. And it's the first time that I've actually managed to talk to people that don't have admin control. And they were surprised to hear that there are specific jobs available in Pure that can do a lot of the things that they're doing. So my question to the 2 Pure admins that were there is like, why don't you let your validators know about this functionality? And they said, we don't know if they'll use it properly. But so it's a little bit difficult. Sometimes I feel that, I'm not saying anybody here, but I don't want Pure admins to be gatekeepers to functionality in Pure. It is obviously a bit of a dangerous thing to give so much control to people. I get that. But the question is, there is a lot of functionality there that can help. So they didn't know about specific jobs, for example, or being able to batch process things. So there's a lot of functionality, and that discussion between you and your validators and the larger Pure teams that are not considered part of the Pure core.
Yes, as administrators, sometimes don't really know what all the jobs are doing.
Yeah.
We're not using a lot of jobs. I think there are pretty good jobs in there. It's too much.
Yeah, so us as a product organization need to be able to figure out, do we need better documentation to help you understand so that you can explain to a validator how it works for them? But coming back to the point about maturing, I think it was Wageningen University in the Netherlands. They had 210,000 external organizations at some point, and they just said time and effort. And I know that's not the answer we want, but they said just as long as you focus on it and do it, the rewards have been huge. Because it's like we only need to validate new organizations once a month. Like they've just managed to get over that hill. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is you see that mountain in front of you of 150, 200,000 organizations. Like, how the hell am I going to get up there? Yeah.
So I literally just wrote down a note about locking fields because when we started, we didn't lock it. Like we didn't know if we had all the journals we needed. We didn't know if we had the external organization. I just made a note, like 7 years in, I'm going to go back and lock those suckers up because I don't want any more random input data. I want them to use the data we have after 7 years. And if we're missing something, they can ask for it. But to her point, like I've forgotten that was an option.
Yeah.
And so.
Any other questions?
I am so sorry because we have to call time because you don't want to miss the next session. In 5 minutes we have the closing remarks for the conference in the big hall, please. So thanks for coming. Thanks to you, Thomas, for the inspiration.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.